Chapter 1. On a late autumn night, the dance troupe was performing in the auditorium. Serafina Holloway, having had her lead dancer role snatched away again, walked bitterly to the manager's office and handed him her resignation letter. "Mr. Thompson, I've decided to leave the troupe." The manager, Mr. Thompson, was surprised. "Serafina, have you discussed this with Mr. Ainsworth? He's about to be transferred to headquarters, and their dance troupe is looking for a principal dancer. You could be on a much bigger stage. It's a wonderful opportunity. Countless people would envy your good fortune." A bigger stage? A wave of bitterness washed over Serafina. She had practiced a dance for 6 months, but for its debut performance tonight, the lead had been replaced by Crystal Jennings. The one who made that decision was none other than her good-fortuned husband, Ethan Ainsworth. At this thought, Serafina's resolve hardened. There's no need to discuss it with him. We're getting a divorce soon. The faint sound of music drifted from the auditorium. Understanding dawned on Mr. Thompson's face, his expression tinged with regret. "Sigh, Mr. Ainsworth treated you so well in the beginning. How did it come to this? The paperwork should take about a month. In the meantime, think it over carefully." "All right, I understand." The night was as cool as water. As Serafina walked down the street, memories flooded her mind. 5 years ago, the troupe performed The Red Coral, her first official debut. Nervous on the grand stage for the first time, she was feeling dejected about her average performance when Ethan Ainsworth, sitting in the center, suddenly stood up and led the applause. Instantly, the entire hall erupted in thunderous applause. The dance troupe was just one of the Ainsworth Corporation's vast enterprises, and Ethan was the sole heir. Serafina stared blankly at the young heir, at his cold, handsome features, and for a moment her heart pounded like a drum. She thought it was just a chance encounter, but after the show, Ethan found her backstage. "Serafina Holloway." Mr. Ainsworth, hello. Don't be nervous, you danced well. Your troupe has another piece, Flight of the Soulmates. How about you dance that for the next performance?" Though it was a question, a word from Ethan Ainsworth was the final say. The day she finished performing Flight of the Soulmates, Ethan walked onto the stage with a bouquet of red roses. "Serafina Holloway, please marry me." His sharp, deep-set eyes held a rare softness, like untouchable snow on a mountaintop melting and flowing down straight into her heart. Serafina moved from the troupe's dormitory into Ethan's villa, becoming the enviable Mrs. Ainsworth. Ethan was usually cold and arrogant, but at night, he was passionate as fire. He would always kiss her deeply, tracing her brows and eyes with his fingertips. He also loved to watch her dance, Flight of the Soulmates. His gaze so intense it was as if a flame were burning within him. In those moments, Serafina was convinced they were in love and that this love would last a lifetime. Until Ethan's childhood sweetheart, Crystal Jennings, returned. "I told you from the start that Orphan Holloway just looks like Crystal and is utterly classless, but you insisted on marrying her now that the real deal is back. What are you going to do?" That day, as Serafina was about to enter the house, she heard the voice of her sister-in-law, Evelyn Ainsworth. "I didn't expect Crystal to come back." Ethan's voice was muffled. "I'm sorry, Ethan. After all this time, I finally realize how good you are. You have no idea how much I've suffered all these years." A strange, soft voice choked with sobs. Serafina looked through the window and saw Crystal Jennings holding Ethan's hand, silently shedding tears. Not only did Ethan not pull away, but he also wrapped an arm around her shoulder in distress, comforting her in a soft voice. "It's all in the past. Don't be sad." When she saw Crystal's face clearly, Serafina felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Crystal really did look a lot like her. The strongest resemblance was in the corners of her eyes, and her lips the very features Ethan was so obsessed with. Chapter 2. Through Crystal Jennings's tearful story, Serafina pieced together her past with Ethan Ainsworth. They had grown up together, childhood sweethearts from families of equal standing. Ethan, who was cold as ice to others, was utterly devoted and gentle to Crystal, granting her every wish. But then Crystal suddenly fell for a rock singer and secretly eloped with him, claiming she wanted to experience a life of freedom and excitement. The singer, however, treated her poorly, not only cheating on her but also frequently beating her. Unable to bear it any longer, she returned dejectedly with her child, only to find that the Jennings family had long since moved abroad. She was suddenly left with no family, utterly alone. Crystal wiped her tears. Ethan, I just came to see you one last time. Since you're married now, I won't bother you. Dottie is still waiting for me. I'll be going. The usually composed Ethan's voice became urgent. Crystal, you're my family too. Don't worry, I'll take care of you and Dottie. With me here, no one will dare to bully you again. Seeing them embrace emotionally, Serafina fled in a panic. She wandered aimlessly outside until late. When she returned, Ethan was nowhere to be seen. He didn't come home all night. The next day, as soon as Serafina entered the dance troupe studio, she saw Ethan walk in, holding a child in one arm and Crystal by the hand with the other. This is your senior, Crystal Jennings. 6 years ago, her performance of Flight of the Soulmates was unparalleled. Please welcome her back to the troupe. Everyone clapped, but their gazes shifted to Serafina with suspicion and shock. Crystal, however, smiled as she sized up Serafina. You really do look a bit like me. Thank you for keeping Ethan company while I was away, and thank you for dancing Flight of the Soulmates for him. Serafina ignored the provocation in her eyes. Amidst a sea of shocked, probing, and sympathetic looks, she looked only at Ethan, but he said nothing. He had tacitly agreed with Crystal's words. Serafina dug her nails into her palm, her heart aching as if it were bleeding. So all those passionate nights were just him missing another woman through her. So, when he watched her dance Flight of the Soulmates with that burning gaze, he was thinking of Crystal. So, she was just a ridiculous substitute. Serafina had once loved Ethan Ainsworth so much. But at the moment she learned the truth, her once burning heart turned cold, inch by inch. Snapping back to the present, Serafina returned home to the sound of a ringing phone. She ran to answer it. Ethan's voice, cold and laced with anger, came through. You knew Crystal was looking forward to today's performance, yet you didn't come to the auditorium to support her. Can't you stand to see her happy? Get over here and apologize to Crystal right now. I did nothing wrong, and I have no obligation to cheer for the person who stole my lead role. Serafina Holloway, what are you competing with Crystal for? You only married me because of her. Shouldn't you give her the lead role? Ethan's words were blunt, but Serafina didn't feel the usual sharp pain in her heart. Then, let's get a divorce. I don't want to ride on anyone's coattails. The anger on the other end of the line stopped abruptly. Ethan even asked, almost cautiously, Are you not feeling well? Why are you suddenly talking nonsense? No, she was serious. Tomorrow, Serafina would file for divorce. But before Serafina could answer, Crystal's soft voice came through. Ethan, is Serafina not coming? Is she still angry with me? It's normal for her to be upset and throw a little tantrum. How about I go and apologize to her? Crystal, what are you talking about? She stole your happiness. What's the big deal about her giving way to you now? Besides, this was my decision. No one can blame you. After Crystal's interruption, Ethan's attitude toward Serafina turned icy again. Serafina, there's a limit to your tantrums. Don't think you can vie for my attention by mentioning divorce. Be careful it doesn't backfire. In that case, even if you wanted to come now, I wouldn't let you. I don't want you ruining Crystal's mood. You just stay home and reflect on your actions. Ethan hung up the phone. The dial tone buzzed, like a hammer striking Serafina's heart. Ethan didn't come home again that night. Since Crystal's return, Serafina couldn't remember how many times this had happened. At first, she would be tormented, unable to sleep all night. She had tried to argue, but Ethan would just look impatient and scold her for her dirty mind. Insisting his friendship with Crystal was purely platonic. Now, with no expectations left, Serafina closed her eyes and quickly fell asleep. The next morning, Serafina went to Mr. Thompson to get a leave request approved, asking for a few days off to go to Westwood City. She explained that she had found her family and needed to go to Westwood City to handle some identity verification procedures in preparation for going abroad. Mr. Thompson had a moment of realization. No wonder you're planning to leave dancing. You're going abroad to reunite with your family. But in that case, what does this mean for you and Mr. Ainsworth? Ethan managed several sensitive industries and was absolutely forbidden from leaving the country. After a moment, Mr. Thompson sighed. Well, I understand your decision. Family is what's most important after all. What family? Ethan strode in from the doorway. Chapter 3. Beside him was Crystal, with her daughter Dottie perched on his shoulders. Crystal leaned against Ethan's shoulder and smiled faintly. I'm sorry, Serafina. Dottie was clinging to Ethan yesterday and wouldn't let him leave, so he stayed. He just spoils her so much, you know. Dottie absolutely adores her Uncle Ethan. Dottie immediately corrected her loudly. He's not my uncle, he's my daddy, that's what I've always called him. Daddy said I'm his daughter. The child instinctively tightened her arms around Ethan's neck, looking at Serafina with hostility. Crystal couldn't hide the triumphant look in her eyes, but her tone was feignedly helpless. Ethan just pampers her too much. Serafina, please don't mind her. It's just childish talk. She expected Serafina to be upset, perhaps even lose her composure as she had in the past. But to her surprise, Serafina just nodded faintly. Fine, I don't mind. Ethan watched her, calm and quiet, and a strange feeling flickered in his heart. What were you two saying about family? He couldn't help but ask again. And why are you holding a leave request form? Where are you going? Serafina replied casually, I'm holding it for someone else. Mr. Thompson raised an eyebrow, seeing she wasn't telling the truth. But then he glanced at the happy picture of a family of 3 that Ethan and the others made, and he just shook his head slightly, saying nothing. Ethan felt an inexplicable sense of relief. Right, you're an orphan with no parents. What family could you have, and where would you go? He began giving orders to Mr. Thompson. Approve a leave request for Crystal. The time and itinerary should match my business trip schedule starting tomorrow. Hearing his presumptuous tone, even Mr. Thompson was a little speechless. Mr. Ainsworth was going to take another woman on a business trip, right in front of his own wife. Since Ethan was his superior, Mr. Thompson couldn't say much and silently complied. But he had a strong premonition that Ethan would come to regret this. Yay, we get to go on a trip. Dottie clapped her hands happily and leaned back. Ethan expertly reached out, catching her and shifting her into his arms. The look of pure adoration in his eyes as he gazed at Dottie sent a pang through Serafina's heart. Serafina loved children and had always hoped to have one with Ethan, but he would always refuse with a frown. If you have a baby, your figure will be ruined. How could you dance Flight of the Soulmates then? Besides, I don't like kids. Now, seeing his affection for Dottie, Serafina understood. Ethan probably just didn't want to have a child with her. Ethan noticed the look of disappointment on Serafina's face. After a moment's hesitation, he spoke with a cold expression. Crystal has a free spirit and she's been through a lot. I'm just taking her out for a change of scenery. Don't overthink it. Serafina, however, just smiled. I understand. A platonic friendship. The strange feeling in Ethan's heart grew stronger. He called out to her as she was leaving. I'm not leaving until tomorrow. I'll be home early for dinner tonight. Make a few of my favorite dishes and wait for me. Serafina just grunted in acknowledgement and calmly walked away. After arriving at the studio, Serafina found an empty dance room and immersed herself in practice. She was a diligent person. Even though she was leaving, she wouldn't slack off at the last moment. Just as she was covered in a light sheen of sweat, the door was suddenly pushed open. It was Crystal. You've got quite the tolerance. Ethan spent the night at my place, and he's even taking me and Dottie on his business trip. You really don't mind? Her tone was incredibly harsh, a complete change from the gentle demeanor she displayed in front of Ethan. Serafina said coolly, whether I mind or not, what's it to you? Crystal sneered. Of course it's my business. You're just my substitute. Ethan is about to be transferred to headquarters, and it's only a matter of time before he takes full control of the Ainsworth Corporation. You're not worthy of him. I heard you mention divorce on the phone that day. Since you've said it, you should hurry up and leave. Make way for me, and if I don't, you think you have the right to say no. Believe it or not, Ethan will never touch you again. I'll get pregnant with his child as soon as possible, and then he'll marry me. Serafina gave a bitter smile. She and Ethan hadn't had an intimate life since Crystal returned over a month ago. It had only been a month, but to her, it felt like several lifetimes, so long and painful. On all those nights of so-called platonic friendship, had he truly betrayed their marriage? The thought made Serafina feel sick, and she couldn't help but retch. Crystal paused, looking at her thoughtfully, a flash of calculation and venom in her eyes. Chapter 4. Suddenly, Crystal's expression changed in an instant, and she began to plead. Serafina, there's really nothing between Ethan and me. You have to believe him, don't be angry with him. If you have any anger, take it out on me. Catching a familiar figure in the corner of her eye, she viciously scratched her own arm. Then, she collapsed weakly. Crystal, Ethan rushed over like a gust of wind. He cradled Crystal in his arms and immediately saw a long scratch on her pale arm, faintly bleeding. Ethan's gaze toward Serafina was instantly filled with fury and disbelief. "I thought you were all talk, but I never imagined you'd act like such a shrew," Serafina bit her lip and said, aggrieved, "I didn't do it." Ethan's brow relaxed slightly, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. "Ah, it hurts." Crystal cried out in his arms, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Ethan, don't blame Serafina. I told her to take it out on me. If it makes her stop being angry at you, the pain is worth it." A chill entered Ethan's eyes. "Listen to that? Even after you scratched her, she's still speaking up for you. And look at yourself, so despicable, so classless." "I didn't," Serafina repeated softly. She lifted her head, blinking back tears, stubbornly refusing to let them fall. Seeing her reddened eyes, Ethan felt a sudden pang in his heart and instinctively moved to comfort her. Crystal grabbed him, her voice trembling. "Ethan, please, let's just drop it. You promised no one would bully me again, and besides Serafina, no one really has. I'm already so grateful to you." "Yes, I promised no one would bully you. I broke my promise." The last trace of pity in Ethan's eyes vanished, replaced by a deep anger at having his authority challenged. Slap the blow landed, and Serafina felt a hot, stinging pain on her face. She flinched and squatted down, hugging her head in terror. "Don't hit me, please. Don't hit me, I'll be good. I'll be good," Serafina was trembling all over. Ugly memories flooded back after being abducted by human traffickers. She was constantly slapped, kicked, and beaten. She was just a child then, suddenly separated from her parents and subjected to such torment, living every day in extreme fear. The experience had made her like a little hedgehog, accustomed to curling up to protect herself. When Ethan learned of this, he had said with heartache, "With me here, no one will ever touch you again." She had once deeply believed that with him, she could shed her thorns, open up, and give him her heart. She never expected that in the end, it would be him who raised his hand and plunged the blade into her. "Serafina, I'm sore," a flicker of regret crossed Ethan's eyes. Seeing this, Crystal gritted her teeth and dug her nails into her own wound again. "Ah, there's more blood, Ethan. I'm so scared. Am I going to die?" Ethan turned to look. The once shallow cut was now oozing beads of blood, a shocking sight. The warmth in his eyes completely disappeared. "Serafina, this is a lesson for you. Don't ever provoke Crystal again, or you'll face the consequences." He swept Crystal up into his arms and rushed out. From his arms, Crystal peeked out and gave Serafina a victorious gesture. Serafina watched them go, numbly. Everything before her became blurry. It wasn't until she felt the warmth on her face that she realized she was crying. The pain in her cheek intensified. Serafina looked in the mirror and saw that Ethan's slap had drawn blood. She stared at her pathetic reflection. How strange. It was her face that hurt, so why did her heart ache so much? Chapter 5. That evening, Serafina didn't prepare a table full of fine dishes as Ethan had instructed. Instead, she made a simple dish that she herself liked. She didn't wait for him either, eating by herself. As she chewed, waves of hot pain shot through her cheek, but Serafina's heart was growing colder and colder. After dinner, Serafina began packing her suitcase for her trip to Westwood City. It wasn't until very late that Ethan called. "I won't be back for dinner. I'm leaving for the business trip tomorrow and won't be back for a few days. You stay home and reflect. When I get back, tell me what you did wrong." Serafina was silent for a moment, then said stubbornly, "I did nothing wrong." Ethan snorted coldly. "I went to the dance troupe today originally intending to tell you I was taking you with me. As expected, you're just not worthy. Crystal has always loved to travel, and she's suffered so much. It's only right that I take her. I hope you'll watch your behavior and not get jealous over nothing." Serafina found it laughable. She loved to travel too. There had been plenty of times when they were free, but Ethan always said he was tired, putting it off with a next time. One next time after another, until there were no more next times for them. But it didn't matter anymore. She could go by herself. Serafina went to the city clerk's office to file a compulsory divorce petition and then left for Westwood City. After years of non-stop dance practice, this was her first long trip, and everything seemed new and fascinating. She quickly completed the necessary paperwork and then wandered around the city. Her parents, far away in another country, had told her that Westwood City was where she had lived as a child. Unfortunately, after falling into the hands of traffickers, she had suffered a head injury and couldn't remember anything from before. Thinking of her family across the ocean, a warmth spread through her heart, and she thoughtfully bought gifts for all of them. Standing by the riverfront, watching the ferries and feeling the breeze, Serafina felt her entire heart become lighter. When she returned, Serafina went to see Mr. Thompson, bringing him a bag of the famous palmier from the Grand Hotel. Mr. Thompson was delighted. "I've heard these are an internet-famous pastry and very hard to buy. My daughter was just saying the other day she wanted to try them. Thank you. By the way, Serafina," he added, "did you file for a compulsory divorce at the city clerk's office? The petition has been approved. As long as you and Mr. Ainsworth sign it and the company stamps it, it'll be official." Serafina took the report, hesitating. Could she just confront Ethan directly and ask him to sign? He always said she was just Crystal's substitute. He should be willing, right? But what if he refused? With Ethan's status, it would be all too easy for him to make things difficult for her. Serafina sat on her bed, lost in thought, not even noticing someone had entered the room. "Oh, the brand of this silk scarf, I think you can only get it in Westwood City. And these palmiers are from there too. How do you have these?" Crystal reached out to touch the scarf. Ethan, holding Dottie, felt his heart suddenly tighten. "Serafina, did you go to Westwood City?" He had a feeling that something was spiraling out of his control, making him inexplicably anxious. Chapter 6. "Someone from the troupe went to visit family and brought them back," Serafina said calmly. "Quick, give those to me, give them all to me." Dottie pointed at the palmier and demanded, her toddler's lisp unable to mask her commanding tone. Crystal's eyes also lingered on the silk scarf, clearly fond of it. Seeing this, Ethan said without thinking, "You like them, then you can have them." It had always been like this. Anything in the house, if they took a liking to it, Ethan would generously give it away. If Serafina ever objected, he would scold her. "It's not worth much. Why are you so petty, like a commoner?" But for Serafina, it wasn't about the money. It was about sentiment, about the home she had painstakingly decorated with her heart. Giving away things from the house to outsiders over time made the home feel incomplete. This time, Serafina didn't back down. These were gifts she had bought for her family. She wouldn't give them to anyone else. She placed both the scarf and the palmier directly into her suitcase. "These are mine. If you want to give them something, you can go buy it yourself." Her refusal was merciless. Ethan, however, didn't get angry as he usually did. His gaze fell on the suitcase. A hint of guilt colored his deep eyes. "The transfer to headquarters isn't until the end of the month. You're packing your things so soon." Serafina took the opportunity to grunt in agreement. Ethan spoke with some difficulty. "It's like this. When I transfer to headquarters, there's a principal dancer position at the troupe there reserved for my spouse." Serafina looked at him, confused. She already knew about this. That's why Mr. Thompson had been so regretful when he heard she was giving up such a great future to resign. Ethan looked away, avoiding her gaze. "I've thought it over. Let's give the spot to Crystal. It's not easy for her to raise Dottie alone. I'll take her there first so I can look after her. As for you, you can stay here for now. I'll find a chance to bring you over later." "Later? But Ethan, there is no later for us." Serafina thought mockingly, a sour feeling still rising in her heart. The man she had loved with all her heart for so long had never once put her first. "Fine, you guys go ahead." Seeing her so decisive, Crystal froze for a moment, then spoke up. "Serafina, if you have any thoughts, just say them. Don't keep them bottled up. Don't go making things difficult for Ethan later or complain after we've left. It wouldn't be good for his reputation. Although the troupe belongs to the Ainsworth family, I don't want his name to have any blemishes." It was a classic case of preemptive accusation. Unfortunately, Ethan fell for it completely. He shot a warning look at Serafina. At that moment, Serafina remembered the divorce petition that needed his signature. "All right, I'll write a statement declaring that I'm voluntarily giving this opportunity to Crystal. That way, there won't be any gossip." She went into the study and quickly drafted a statement. She then placed the 2 copies of the divorce petition underneath it and brought them to Ethan. "This is in triplicate. One for you to take, one for me to keep, and one for Mr. Thompson. This way, everything will be legitimate." Ethan felt that strange, unsettling feeling again. Why wasn't she fighting at all? Why was she being so reasonable? Ethan hesitantly picked up the pen and looked at the statement. The handwriting was elegant, just like her, and there was nothing wrong with the content. He subconsciously started to flip to the next page. Serafina's heart tightened. "Ethan, hurry up and sign. Dottie's getting sleepy," Crystal urged. She also felt something was off, but since this was to her advantage, she was determined to see it through. Dottie started rubbing her eyes, whining, "I want Daddy to tuck me in." Ethan hesitated no longer and quickly signed his name. Putting down the pen, he picked up the top copy and left with Dottie in his arms without a backward glance. After he left, Serafina signed both copies of the divorce petition and took them to Mr. Thompson to be stamped. The paperwork was complete. From now on, they would walk their separate ways. In the following days, Serafina calmly prepared for her final performance. Before she left, there was a grand showcase. It was Serafina's first time trying choreography, and she knew it would likely be her last. She just wanted to complete it without any regrets. One day, while Serafina was practicing her dance, the manager's assistant called out to her. "Serafina, Mr. Thompson wants you to meet him by the hillside. You should go now." Although Serafina found it strange, the assistant was usually a decent person, so she didn't suspect anything and hurried over. Below the hillside was a river. The weather had turned sharply colder the day before, and the river's surface had frozen over, glinting coldly. "Mr. Thompson," Serafina called out, standing on the empty hillside. Then she heard a soft laugh from below. "You really are easy to fool." Chapter 7. Crystal quickly climbed up, her eyes, for some reason, fixed on Serafina's stomach. Her gaze was as cold as a snake, filled with pure malice. "I'm here today to make things clear to you. Ethan chose to take me with him, which means he loves me. You'll be abandoned by him sooner or later." Serafina had no desire to get entangled. How boring. With that, she turned to leave. But Crystal grabbed her arm and shoved her hard down the slope. At the same time, she screamed in terror. "No, Serafina, don't push me," as her body tilted backward. Serafina saw Ethan running toward them at full speed. He shot a single, cold glance at the falling Serafina before unhesitatingly grabbing Crystal and pulling her into his arms. Serafina's body tumbled down the hillside, sharp stones cutting into her skin. Then, she landed hard on the ice. A heart-wrenching pain spread throughout her body, finally concentrating in her lower abdomen. It felt as if iron tongs were twisting inside her, the pain so intense that Serafina fainted. When she woke up, realizing no one was coming for her, Serafina gritted her teeth against the excruciating pain and slowly crawled back up the hillside. She gasped for breath, her hands covered in blood. But before she could recover, she saw Ethan approaching with a grim face and two subordinates. "I told you, no one is allowed to bully Crystal. Since you keep causing trouble, don't blame me for being harsh," he gave a cold command. "Lock her in the isolation room." "No," hearing the words isolation room, Serafina cried out in terror. She had once been locked in a dark room by traffickers for 3 days and 3 nights without food or water. Ever since, she had suffered from claustrophobia. Ethan knew exactly what she feared most, and he was using it to punish her. "Please don't. I know I was wrong. Please don't do this to me." She begged pitifully, admitting fault against her will. Her face was deathly pale, and her body trembled so violently it seemed she might shatter at any moment. But Ethan was unmoved. "There are consequences for breaking the rules." Serafina was dragged away, powerless to resist. Hot tears fell, freezing almost instantly. Just like her once burning feelings, they were now frozen solid. The moment she was plunged into darkness, nightmarish memories assaulted her, and Serafina couldn't stop screaming and crying. She pounded on the door, begging for help, but it was futile. Serafina was covered in injuries, the pain in her abdomen grew worse, and she felt incredibly cold. She almost couldn't hold on. She wanted to give up, to just close her eyes and sleep forever. In the end, she bit her lip until it bled, telling herself that she still had a family. They were waiting for her across the ocean, waiting for their reunion. "Don't give up, Serafina. You can't give up after what felt like an eternity." The door finally opened. The sun was about to set. She had been locked up for a full day and night. "I hope you've learned your lesson." Ethan looked down at her, curled into a ball. But when he saw the patch of red between her legs, he froze. Why are you bleeding so much? A dense web of pain and an inexplicable panic filled Ethan's heart. Serafina clutched her stomach and said weakly, "It hurts so much. Take me to the hospital." "Oh my, Serafina, are you on your period?" Crystal looked at her blood-stained lower body, a flash of triumphant surprise in her eyes. She wrinkled her nose in disgust. "Serafina, why didn't you use anything? For a girl, that's so messy. And the smell?" Ethan immediately dismissed the ridiculous thought that had crossed his mind. "Serafina Holloway, you can run and jump without any problem every time you get your period. Why are you being so dramatic now? Is this worth going to the hospital for? I'm very busy. I don't have time for your theatrics." Crystal curled her lip and swayed Ethan's arm coquettishly. "It's time for dinner. Let's go, or Dottie will be hungry." "You're right, Dottie is a growing girl. We can't let her go hungry." Ethan's expression softened as he walked away side by side with her. Serafina struggled to her feet and walked, step by step, toward the hospital. After the doctor examined her, she exclaimed with sympathy, "You've had a miscarriage, Chapter 8. Serafina's eyes widened in horror. Overwhelmed by grief, she lost consciousness. When she woke up, the surgery was already over. She touched her flat abdomen and couldn't stop the tears from streaming down her face. She had always wanted a child. She truly loved children. This baby had been so strong. It had survived all her long days of dance practice. It must have wanted to be her child very, very much, but she had been too weak to keep it. Serafina closed her eyes, trembling. "I'm so sorry, my child. Let's make a promise. Will you come find me again next time?" Serafina left the hospital the next day, but Ethan didn't even notice she had been gone all night. Clearly, he hadn't come home last night either. Seeing her pale face, however, Ethan's heart softened. "All right, I admit I was a bit harsh, but it was for your own good. I don't want you to become too spoiled. How about this? Don't you like children? Once I'm at headquarters, I'll have you transferred over as soon as possible, and we'll have a child of our own." As he said this, Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He had undergone a premarital checkup, and the doctor had told him it would be very difficult for him to have children. When he had coldly told Serafina he had no time to have a baby, his heart had been filled with regret and longing. He desperately wanted a child to carry on his bloodline, almost to the point of madness. Serafina's heart felt as if it had been viciously squeezed, the pain nearly suffocating her. "Ethan, our child is already gone, and there will be no more children between us." Seeing Serafina's silence, Ethan hesitated for a moment before saying, "Several directors from headquarters will be at this showcase, and Crystal feels one performance isn't enough to make an impression. Since you're covered in injuries and can't perform anyway, why don't you give her your piece as well? If she leaves a good impression on the directors, it will help her career when she gets to headquarters." So, Ethan was just trying to placate her with promises of a baby for Crystal's sake. Serafina felt a deep sense of irony. She said slowly, "Fine." This was the first dance she had ever choreographed, a piece into which she had poured all her emotions, hoping it would be a perfect end to her dancing career. The dance was about her love story with Ethan, but in reality, it was all one-sided. There had never been any love between them. There was no reason for her to dance it anymore. So let Crystal have it. This dance, she didn't want either of them anymore. If Crystal enjoyed picking up her trash, she could have it. Thinking of Crystal, Serafina remembered something. When she was pushed down the hillside, she thought she had seen someone on the opposite hill. If she could find that witness, she could make Crystal face the punishment she deserved. Serafina would get justice for herself and her baby, but for now, having just had a miscarriage, she needed to rest. She had finally understood. You have to love yourself first before anyone else can love you. If there's nothing else, I'm going to sleep. She wrapped herself in the blanket, ignoring Ethan completely. The next day, Serafina followed the contact information her parents had given her and sent a message to a local relative. This relative was also a person of some influence. He came to see her immediately, expressing his heartfelt sympathy and promising to find the evidence of Crystal pushing her, ensuring she would be brought to justice. "Sierra, you'll be going abroad soon, right? If you need anything these next few days, just call me anytime. We're family, so don't you dare be a stranger." A faint smile finally appeared on Serafina's face. She nodded, her nose tingling with emotion, but her heart was warm. So this is what it felt like to have a family. In the days that followed, Crystal, using the excuse that she was too busy rehearsing 2 dances, asked Ethan to take care of Dottie for her. At first, Ethan would still explain and report his whereabouts to Serafina, but seeing her persistent indifference, he grew annoyed and started staying over at Crystal's place directly. Serafina, however, remained completely unfazed. She packed her luggage, placing the divorce petition and the miscarriage report together in a drawer in the study. She hoped Ethan would like this gift. The end of the month arrived, the night of the grand showcase. Cars streamed into the dance troupe's grounds. The grand auditorium was newly decorated and brightly lit. Amidst the lively atmosphere, one car drove in the opposite direction, heading for the airport. Serafina looked back. Everything behind her grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared from view. In her heart, she said, "Goodbye. Goodbye, Ethan Ainsworth. I hope we never meet again." As for her, she was heading toward a brand new life. Chapter 9. The Grand Auditorium. The showcase on stage was spectacular, but Ethan Ainsworth, sitting in the front row, was distracted. A strange sense of panic gnawed at him, growing stronger with each passing moment. He didn't know why, but he wanted to see Serafina right away. It felt as if only that could calm his nerves. Just as Ethan was about to leave, he heard the host announce the next dance. Next, Crystal Jennings will perform her original choreography, The Intertwined Branches. Ethan remembered that this was the dance Serafina had choreographed. He couldn't help but watch the stage, his expression growing more focused. Dance can convey emotion, and Ethan quickly understood the meaning embedded in the movements. It was Serafina's nervousness and apprehension during her debut. It was the flutter of her heart when he stood to applaud her. It was her surprise and sweetness at his proposal. It was the blissful intimacy of their life together after marriage. So, Serafina's dance was born from their love. In heaven, we shall be as birds flying wing to wing. On earth, as trees with intertwined branches. He loved Flight of the Soulmates, so she choreographed The Intertwined Branches to express her overflowing love. It was just a pity that the person interpreting this love on stage was not Serafina. As for the reason, a mix of emotions: gratitude, guilt, heartache, and self-blame welled up in Ethan. He no longer hesitated and strode out of the auditorium. When he returned to the villa, he was greeted by darkness. Ethan turned on all the lights and searched every room, but there was no sign of Serafina. Where could she be so late at night? Could she have left without a word? But Ethan quickly dismissed such an absurd thought. She was an orphan, and she was injured. She was usually either at home or at the dance troupe. Where else could she go? Right, maybe she was backstage at the auditorium with the other dancers. That must be it. Ethan rushed back to the auditorium. By the time he arrived, the showcase was over. He had just reached the backstage area when someone grabbed his hand. "Ethan, I knew you'd come to see me." Crystal was wearing a beautiful dance costume, her stage makeup still on, making her face look dazzlingly white under the lights. Her eyes, like pools of autumn water, gazed at Ethan with deep affection. Seeing this, the other members of the troupe tactfully dispersed, and soon only the two of them were left in the dressing room. "Ethan, I've wanted to get back together with you ever since I returned, but you kept rejecting me. Even though you stayed at my place every night, you were only there for Dottie. You wouldn't even kiss me, but I didn't give up. Because I know you have feelings for me. You were just mad at me for leaving without a word. Once you're not angry anymore, you'll come back to me. I saw your reaction when I was dancing The Intertwined Branches. You were mesmerized, completely captivated. You're still attracted to me, you still love me, don't you? Leave that substitute. Let's be together from now on. I'll cherish you." Crystal's face beamed with the joy of a wish about to come true. She stood on her tiptoes to kiss him. Ethan pushed her away. "Crystal, you're overthinking it. I told you a long time ago that I see you as family and that I'd take care of you and Dottie. But that's all. There are no romantic feelings between us." Ethan's words were cold, but Crystal didn't believe him. She even laughed. "Ethan, don't kid yourself. Do you have any idea how lovingly you were looking at me when I was dancing?" Lovingly? Ethan laughed at himself. At that moment, his mind and heart were filled with thoughts of Serafina. And now, as he recalled seeing Serafina backstage for the first time, he wished with all his might that the person standing before him was her. Ethan realized that, without knowing it, he had already fallen in love with Serafina. Crystal, the dance you performed, the intertwined branches, tells the story of my love with Serafina. That's why I was moved. I only see you as family. Serafina is the one I love. Crystal finally panicked. That's impossible. Ethan, you're lying, aren't you? Didn't you admit that you only saw her as my substitute? Maybe at the beginning, but now I love her. As he said this, Ethan's eyes filled with tenderness. I didn't realize it before, and I let her suffer a lot of grievances. Luckily, it's not too late. I'll make it up to her from now on and love her properly. So, I'll be taking Serafina with me to headquarters this time. I don't want to be apart from her. As for you and Dottie, I'll make proper arrangements for you as well. No, Ethan. Crystal tried to cling to him, but Ethan walked away without looking back. I need to find Serafina now and tell her how I feel. That's the most important thing. We can talk about everything else later. He stopped several people from the troupe to ask, but they all said they hadn't seen Serafina. The feeling of unease grew stronger. Back at the villa, he noticed something was wrong. The little cat keychain Serafina liked was gone. The hat she casually hung in the entryway was gone. The bedroom closet was half empty. All of her clothes were gone. Ethan ran into the study and found that the book Serafina had been reading recently, Bonjour Tristesse, was also gone. It was as if she was trying to disappear from his world entirely. He slammed his fist on the desk in frustration. A drawer slid open, revealing a piece of paper inside. Ethan took it out. When he saw the words on it, he felt as if he'd been struck by 5 bolts of lightning. Chapter 10, A Miscarriage Report. And in the patient field, the name written was Serafina Holloway. A tidal wave of rage washed over him, his face contorting in a way that was almost inhuman. How dare Serafina, how dare she get rid of his child? The doctor had said it would be a medical miracle if he could have a child. And Serafina had dared to destroy his miracle. Ethan glared at the report, wanting to tear it to shreds. But then, suddenly, he saw the date and his entire body went rigid. It was that day. The day after Serafina had fallen down the hillside and been locked in isolation for a day and a night. Remembering the blood that had pooled beneath Serafina and her paper-white face, a horrifying realization dawned on Ethan. He grabbed the report and rushed out. He left in such a hurry that he didn't see another piece of paper under the report fall to the floor and slip into the crack beneath the desk. Late at night, there were still doctors on duty at the hospital. Ethan grabbed a doctor by the collar, roaring in agony. What happened? How could my wife have a miscarriage out of the blue? The doctor's reaction was one of pure shock. Your wife had a miscarriage and you're only finding out now. She accidentally fell from a hill and missed the optimal window for treatment. She didn't come in until a day later, which is why she had to have a DC procedure. It's such a shame. If the patient had come in right after the fall, we might have been able to save the baby. After all, she was in excellent physical condition. Even with daily dance practice, the fetus wasn't affected. The pregnancy was very stable. The doctor's mouth opened and closed, but Ethan couldn't hear a thing. He felt as if he were being torn apart by the bloody maw of a beast, leaving him a mangled mess of pain. So Serafina had given him a miracle after all. So it had been an incredibly strong baby. So, if he had just been a little earlier, everything could have been saved. But the one who had locked her in isolation, who had punished her, who had caused their baby to lose its life, that person was him. He had destroyed his own miracle. Ethan's heart had never hurt so much. He clutched his chest and stumbled away. So, was Serafina blaming him? Where had she gone? Filled with remorse, Ethan wanted only to find her and beg for her forgiveness. He knew his own heart now. He would love her with everything he had, and they could surely create another miracle. Serafina, where are you? The cold wind on his face brought back fragments of memory. He remembered Mr. Thompson mentioning her family, remembered the palmier, and the silk scarf Serafina had packed in her suitcase. He must know something. Mr. Thompson lived with his wife and daughter in the troupe's staff apartments. In the dead of night, Ethan pounded on the door. When Mr. Thompson opened it, his face was grim. Mr. Ainsworth, you're waking my daughter, but Ethan, completely ignoring his tone, grabbed him desperately, as if clinging to a lifeline. Where is my Serafina? Do you know where my Serafina is? Mr. Thompson looked at him in disbelief. Serafina resigned. By my calculations, she should have left today. You didn't know? What? She never told me. Ethan swayed on his feet. I'm her husband. How could she not tell me something so important, Mr. Thompson's expression became even more incredulous. But you're already divorced. After the compulsory divorce petition was approved, you signed it yourself. I'm the one who stamped it. What, you didn't know? Ethan was so shocked he forgot to breathe. In a flash, he remembered Serafina's uncharacteristic behavior, how she had proactively written a statement agreeing to let him leave with Crystal, and how she had said it needed to be in triplicate. She had said she would leave a copy for him. Ethan stumbled back toward the villa. Until he saw the divorce petition with his own eyes, he would never believe it, but the drawer was empty. Ethan ransacked the study but found nothing. He collapsed onto the floor in despair, then noticed a piece of white paper in the crack under the desk. Ethan immediately reached for it. A nail under the wooden panel sliced his hand open, and blood instantly gushed out. He seemed oblivious to the pain, staring blankly at the divorce petition. It was, indeed, the one he had signed that day. It also bore Serafina's signature and the official red stamp. Now drops of Ethan's own blood stained it, a sight so shocking he couldn't bear to look. Ethan was frozen, like a statue, staring lifelessly at the paper in his hand. So light, yet so heavy, it nearly crushed him. His Serafina was truly gone. She had completely and utterly left him. Realizing this, Ethan pounded his chest with his bloodied hand and let out a heart-wrenching, soul-shattering howl. Chapter 11. Looking at his bleeding hand, Ethan thought of the day Serafina had struggled up the hillside, her once delicate, pale hands scraped raw and shockingly red. But at that time, he had felt no pity, only obsessed with right and wrong, with punishing her. He knew she was terrified of being locked in the dark. He knew she had already begged for mercy and admitted fault. But he hadn't softened, hadn't let her go. If he had taken Serafina to the hospital in time, would their baby have survived? The more Ethan thought about it, the more remorseful he became. He closed his eyes in agony, letting out ragged, choked sobs. After a long while, he calmed down, lying limply on the floor as if his soul had departed. By the time he came to his senses, it was the next morning. Where did Serafina go after she resigned? Tell me, now in the office, Mr. Thompson looked up to see Ethan burst in against the light. His eyes were bloodshot, his hand was bleeding, and in just one night he had become gaunt, as if he had lost something most precious. Mr. Thompson was stunned. The Ethan Ainsworth he knew had always been so calm and controlled, so cold and imposing. Never had he been in such a state. Mr. Thompson recalled his premonition that Ethan would regret his actions. It had truly come to pass. But what use was belated regret? In the short 2 months since Crystal's return, Ethan had done so many cruel things to Serafina. Most unforgivably, he had caused her to have a miscarriage. How laughable. Ethan had killed his own flesh and blood for a woman who had betrayed him that day. When Mr. Thompson went to the hospital pharmacy for his daughter's medicine, he had seen Serafina sitting alone on a hallway bench, clutching her stomach, weeping silently in utter agony. She made no sound, but her silent pain was deafening. At that moment, Mr. Thompson felt that whatever retribution Ethan faced, he deserved it. At this thought, Mr. Thompson's expression grew cold. Where did Serafina go? I'm not sure about that. I only handle the paperwork. As for her destination, that's up to her. Serafina was right to leave a man like this, and Mr. Thompson would not aid a tyrant. Ethan met this soft refusal with suspicion, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized Mr. Thompson as if he were a criminal. Is that really so? Why didn't you tell me about Serafina's resignation? She was divorcing me, something that huge, and as her manager, you had an obligation to inform me. And last time, I heard you talking about family. Did Serafina find her family? What else are you hiding from me? Tell me everything, now. Ethan was used to being in a position of power, and he radiated an aura of authority. Now, with his face cold and stern, the pressure he exuded was immense. The very air seemed to drop in temperature. But to Ethan's surprise, Mr. Thompson did not show the terrified expression of a subordinate being reprimanded. He simply spoke in a calm, measured tone. Mr. Ainsworth, don't try to pressure me with such words. According to regulations, a resignation only requires the individual's application. Serafina's application was perfectly in line with procedure. As for a compulsory divorce, one party applies, both parties sign, and the process is complete. The procedures were all compliant. Furthermore, Serafina only mentioned in passing that she had found her family. As for the specific details, if even you, the person closest to her, didn't know, how would I? After a pause, Mr. Thompson couldn't stop himself from speaking his mind. Mr. Ainsworth, you yourself failed to fulfill your duties as a husband, yet you question me for not fulfilling mine. That's rather difficult to understand. How did I fail to fulfill my duties? The sudden rise in Ethan's voice betrayed a hint of guilt. Well, you'll have to ask yourself that. Mr. Thompson's calm words were like a knife stabbing into Ethan's heart. Yes, he knew. He knew he had been so wrong. He remembered that 6 months ago, after receiving an email, Serafina's eyes had been red, as if she had been crying. When he came home, she seemed to have something to say, but he had been working overtime for days, felt exhausted, and had been unwilling to listen. Later, Serafina had tried to talk to him several more times, but he had impatiently brushed her off. Only at night was he willing to spend more time with her, and back then, he had only seen her as a substitute for another woman, a way to soothe his own heart. So, Serafina had found her family 6 months ago. At that time, she probably hadn't been thinking of leaving. Why, then, did she later disappear so decisively? The resignation and the divorce petition were both filed a month ago. What happened on that particular day? Ethan tried hard to remember but couldn't. He had his assistant check his schedule and found out that it was the day he had once again made Serafina give up the lead dancer role to Crystal. Before that, he had often stayed over at Crystal's to take care of Dottie, without deigning to give Serafina a proper explanation. Serafina must have accumulated enough disappointment to disappear without a word. But he wouldn't allow her to disappear. It was just a resignation. Ethan was confident he could find her soon. Chapter 12. With a clear goal in mind, Ethan calmed down. Dancers who left the troupe usually applied for positions at the local community arts center. Finding Serafina shouldn't be that difficult. Ethan took a few subordinates and traveled dusty and weary to Serafina's supposed hometown, Riverton. It was a small coastal city next to Westwood City. However, when Ethan went to Riverton's community arts center, there was no sign of Serafina. He immediately went to the local employment office, but they also stated that they had not received Serafina's employment file. It was only then that Ethan suddenly remembered that Riverton wasn't Serafina's real hometown, just the place where she had escaped from the traffickers. At that time, Serafina had managed to escape and happened to run into the dance troupe, which was scouting in various places. They found her calling for help on the street, saw her potential, and brought her back. Later, the police, using the clues she provided, dismantled the entire trafficking ring. Since Serafina had found her family, she must have returned to her real hometown. Ethan pondered for a moment and quickly deduced that Serafina was likely from Westwood City. He had long suspected something was off about those scarves and palmiers that were only available there. However, after checking every community arts center and employment office in Westwood City, he still came up empty. Serafina had not registered with her file there either. Ethan returned to his company, utterly dejected. Seeing him, his assistant let out a huge sigh of relief. "Mr. Ainsworth, you're finally back. Tomorrow is the day to report to headquarters." "No." Ethan shook his head firmly and made a decision. "Write a statement for me. I'm not going to headquarters. I'm taking a leave of absence. I have something very important to do." He couldn't focus on work without finding Serafina. She wasn't in Riverton, nor was she in Westwood City. That was disappointing, but it didn't matter. He could expand his search nationwide. Even if it was like looking for a needle in a haystack, he had to find her. Ethan had always been a man of his word. His assistant didn't dare to object but quietly called Arthur Ainsworth SR and reported everything. Soon, Ethan received a call from his father, who chewed him out. "You brat, stop this nonsense." When Crystal Jennings left without a word, "I didn't see you acting like you were going to die. Didn't you say Serafina was just a substitute? Crystal is back now, so if she's gone, she's gone. What's all the fuss about? Don't tell me you're using this as a tactic to force me to agree to you marrying Crystal. It's not out of the question, but first, you get yourself to headquarters." "That's not it," Ethan said with a bitter smile. "Serafina isn't a substitute. She's my wife, the woman I love. I've genuinely fallen for her. Dad, in life, you can always restart a career, but if you miss out on the person you love, it could be a lifetime of regret. I have to find her. I hope you can understand my decision. Arthur Ainsworth SR was both angry and helpless. You've never faced a real setback in your life. That's why you're so reckless. If it weren't for the family's backing, do you think your career would have been so smooth? Going to headquarters is no joke. Even if you're my son, the board will have opinions. If you miss this chance, it won't be so easy to get it back. But Ethan was unmoved. That doesn't matter. Right now, the most important thing for me is to find Serafina. His father was so angry he could barely speak, only his heavy breathing coming through the phone. But Ethan just said firmly, "I'm sorry, Dad. I have to go find her. When I bring Serafina back, I'll come to you and beg for forgiveness." Unsure how long it would take to find Serafina, Ethan had his assistant pack a few sets of clothes into a suitcase. Just as he was about to leave, Crystal arrived at his villa with Dottie. Ethan, Daddy, the two of them clung to him, refusing to let him go. Dottie even burst into tears with a loud wah. "Daddy, where have you been these past 2 days? You didn't tuck Dottie in at night." Dottie was so scared. Dottie is so sad. Wah, Chapter 13. A little girl of 3 is already adorable, not to mention Dottie had inherited her mother's good looks and was as delicate as a porcelain doll. Usually, at a time like this, Ethan would have surrendered unconditionally, agreeing to whatever Dottie wanted. But at this moment, looking at Dottie's aggrieved little face, he felt a sharp pang in his heart. Crystal and Serafina looked alike, so naturally, Dottie bore some resemblance to Serafina as well. Ethan thought, lost in a daze, if he and Serafina had a daughter, would she be like Dottie? No, she would definitely be cuter. The thought was like a knife to his heart. With his heart aching, his resolve for once hardened. "Dottie, from now on, call me uncle. Don't get it wrong. Only the baby that your Aunt Serafina and I have can call me Daddy." In that moment, Ethan realized he was just desperate for a child and had noticed the resemblance between Dottie's features and Serafina's. He had projected his desires onto Dottie, imagining her as his own child, which was why he had been so good to her. He was going to find Serafina and have a child of his own. Seeing that Ethan was determined to leave despite Dottie's crying, Crystal gave Dottie a look. Dottie understood and threw herself forward, falling to the ground. "Ow, it hurts so much." However, this tried and true tactic of playing pitiful failed this time. Ethan's steps merely faltered for a moment. He didn't even look back before continuing on his way. "Wah, Mommy, didn't you say Daddy would become my real daddy? Does he not want me anymore?" Crystal hugged Dottie, her heart pounding with panic. Things seemed to be going wrong. That Serafina was just her substitute. She had used Dottie to make Ethan stay over again and again, deepening the rift between the couple. Serafina was naive and no match for her, constantly suffering losses and seeing Ethan defend her, which gradually made her lose heart. The biggest obstacle had been Serafina's pregnancy, but Crystal had successfully schemed to make her miscarry. She should no longer be a threat. Why, then, was Ethan now proclaiming his love for Serafina, even willing to give up his promotion to headquarters to find her? He loved Serafina? No, it was impossible. Crystal refused to believe it. They had 20 years of history as childhood sweethearts. He had sworn since they were young that she would be his bride. How could she lose to a substitute? Ethan must still be angry with her, angry that she eloped with the singer, so he was deliberately tormenting her. Yes, that must be it. Crystal convinced herself it didn't matter. As long as she could win Ethan back in the end, she could endure this humiliation. But she wouldn't just sit and wait with this thought. Crystal took Dottie back to her dorm and immediately called Evelyn Ainsworth in the next city. If Crystal and Ethan were childhood sweethearts, then Evelyn was her childhood best friend. As soon as she returned, Evelyn had happily come from the next city to see her, saying the real deal was finally back and that she had never liked Serafina. Surely, her old best friend and future sister-in-law would be more than willing to help her. "Evelyn, I need you to help me with something." After Crystal explained her idea, Evelyn agreed without hesitation. "Crystal, I'll definitely help you even if you hadn't asked. I was going to contact you anyway. You have no idea how angry my dad is. My brother gave up a great future for that substitute. I never thought that substitute was not only classless, but also a femme fatale. We can't let her ruin my brother. In my heart, I've never considered her my sister-in-law. I've always hoped you would marry my brother, then we'd be even closer." Crystal felt relieved. She discussed the details with Evelyn and chatted for a while longer before hanging up with a smile. Then, she began to prepare. Crystal was confident that this time, she would win Ethan over for good. Chapter 14. Ethan quickly deployed a plan to find her. Since Serafina had escaped in Riverton, it was highly likely her home was not far from there. So he made Riverton the center of his search and planned to conduct a sweeping, grid-like search. He searched tirelessly, day and night, often visiting several places in a single day. In just 1 week, Ethan had lost a lot of weight, but his eyes burned with a startling intensity. A single belief sustained him. He had to find Serafina. He had to tell her all the love he had failed to express. One day, after a long day of searching, he called home to report that he was safe. Before his father could get angry, his sister, Evelyn, snatched the phone, almost impatiently. "Brother, I heard Serafina might have gone back to look for you. Do you want to come back and see?" Ethan's heart leaped, overwhelmed by a huge wave of joy. He was so stunned he forgot to reply, hastily hanging up the phone and rushing back. "Faster, go faster." After getting off the train, Ethan constantly urged the driver who came to pick him up. The car sped up, and his heart beat faster and faster. Before, he had been so focused on finding Serafina that he hadn't had time to think. Now, hearing she was back, he felt a trace of apprehension. What should he say when he saw her? Should he apologize first, or confess his love? Ethan reviewed their past and gradually suppressed his anxiety. Although he had realized his love for Serafina a bit late and had indeed hurt her, Serafina had her faults too. For years, as the wife of a powerful man, she had been envied by everyone and had enjoyed a life of comfort with him. Just because Crystal came back and he spent a few more nights with Dottie, she was always unhappy and resentful. Her trust in him was seriously lacking. Just because he asked her to give up the lead role to Crystal a few times, she looked heartbroken. It was just dancing, a frivolous pastime, not some tangible contribution. That was a bit dramatic. Even worse, because Serafina was dissatisfied, she pushed Crystal down and scratched her arm. Later, she even lured Crystal to the back hill, intending to push her down the slope. If he hadn't arrived in time, Crystal would have suffered a terrible injustice. He didn't love Crystal anymore, but they had grown up together. He couldn't let her be wronged like that. Thinking of this, Ethan shook his head. Actually, Serafina had done many things that were out of line. If she hadn't been so extreme, their baby would have been perfectly fine. Ethan sighed. Since they were both at fault, they should let bygones be bygones and live a good life together from now on. At this thought, his heart felt lighter, and he eagerly anticipated their reunion. Ethan returned to the villa, dusty from his journey, and from a distance, he smelled the aroma of food cooking in the kitchen. A warmth spread through his heart, but his pace slowed. He walked inside on tiptoe. It was as if this were a dream, and he was afraid that any sudden movement would wake him up. Opening the door, he heard sounds from the kitchen and approached step by step. A familiar figure, her hair in a casual ponytail, an apron tied around her waist, was holding a spatula. In the pan, she was stir-frying his favorite sweet and sour ribs. A lump formed in Ethan's throat, and he could no longer contain his emotions. "Serafina, I've missed you so much." He practically flew over, hugging the person he had longed for from behind. The person in his arms trembled, then immediately turned around, wrapped her arms around him, and pressed her lips to his. Ethan responded passionately, and the two were soon lost in a deep kiss. As the atmosphere heated up, Ethan's hands began to wander. He slipped his hand under the apron, under the hem of her shirt, and touched the smooth, soft skin. As his hand roamed, it suddenly encountered a hard texture. It felt like a scar. Chapter 15, a C-section scar. A buzz filled Ethan's head, and he pushed the person away. When he saw her clearly, his world shattered. It wasn't Serafina who had returned. It was Crystal, impersonating her Crystal, who always wore her hair long and flowing, had tied it up like Serafina. She who never cooked was making sweet and sour ribs like Serafina, even wearing her apron. He had almost been fooled. "Crystal, I already made things clear to you. Why would you do this?" Ethan's eyes blazed with fury. There was also a deep sense of loss in his heart, an unbearable ache. Why wasn't the person in front of him Serafina? The sweet and sour ribs on the stove had been left on the heat and were now burnt, emitting a scorched smell. Ethan turned off the fire and looked at the mess in the pan, then said pointedly, "This pot of sweet and sour ribs smelled wonderful, but now it's burnt. It's beyond saving. Some things, once they happen, once they've spoiled, can never go back." However, Crystal chose to play dumb. She threw herself at him, hugging him tightly. "That's not true, we can go back, you kissed me so passionately just now. That was our first kiss, let's continue, okay? Just try and you'll see, we'll be so good together, we." Ethan pushed her away in frustration. Once upon a time, he had seen Crystal as a pure goddess. They had been childhood friends, holding hands and embracing innocently. But they had never kissed. Ethan had always planned to save that most beautiful moment for their wedding night. But then Crystal had suddenly run off, eloping with a rock singer. She came back with a child, having given everything to another man. In that moment, Ethan knew that his former treasure was shattered. The person before him was no longer the Crystal he had cherished so carefully, but just a friend he had grown up with. "Crystal, if I hadn't thought you were Seraphina, I never would have kissed you. I only did it because I thought you were her. You know I'm a purist, in my relationships as well. I don't want something that someone else has touched." Crystal stumbled back a few steps, her face filled with incredulous humiliation. "Seraphina was my substitute, and now you're treating me like her. How could you humiliate me like this? What do you take me for?" Ethan suppressed his anger and said, "I take you for a childhood friend, and that's all." Crystal looked at him, heartbroken, and gradually, her shame turned to anger. "So, you hold it against me that I've been with someone else, that I've had a child. But I've never been married. If I married you, it would be my first marriage. But you're divorced, so if you remarry, it's your second. My first marriage to your second, how am I not good enough for you?" Ethan gave a bitter smile. "It has nothing to do with that. Even if you were an angel, I'd still reject you, because I reject you for not being Seraphina. I will never marry you. I will only remarry Seraphina. Give up." Crystal completely broke down. She forgot about maintaining her gentle image in front of Ethan and shrieked hysterically. "What's so great about Seraphina anyway? She has no education, no background. She's just an orphan, a pathetic wretch who was abused for years. And now she runs away at the slightest trouble, she just disappears. She doesn't even love you, or else why would she leave without a word? I'm the only one who loves you, Ethan. Don't fall for a classless woman like that." A vicious slap silenced Crystal completely. She clutched her swollen face and felt blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. Ethan had struck her with all his force. His face was ashen, his expression ferocious. For the first time, Crystal felt true fear. "Crystal, I will not allow you to speak about Seraphina like that, dare to say another word against her, and I will make you see the consequences. Besides, are you any better? You slander her while pretending to be her to seduce me. You're pathetic. Take off that apron and get out. That's Seraphina's apron. You're not worthy of wearing it." Crystal finally realized that Seraphina had become Ethan's raw nerve, completely off limits. Ethan's anger was terrifying. Crystal almost instinctively ripped off the apron and fled in a frenzy. Once outside, tears streamed down Crystal's face. When had Ethan's love for Seraphina become so deep? Was she really going to lose him? No, she wouldn't. Seraphina had made him give up his career. The Ainsworth family was very displeased with her. If she just tried a little harder, she could still win Ethan back. Crystal called Evelyn Ainsworth again, and they finally came up with a plan. She immediately had Dottie sent to the Ainsworth family in the next city, entrusted to Evelyn's care. Then she composed herself and went to find Ethan again. Chapter 16. Ethan washed his face, accepting the fact that Seraphina had not returned. He prepared to set out again. "Mr. Ainsworth, there's an anonymous email for you." His assistant walked in with a laptop. Ethan casually opened it, but his expression gradually froze and his face quickly turned ashen. "Verify the contents of this letter," he ordered his assistant, his eyes filled with a towering rage. If all of this was true, he would make the person who hurt Seraphina pay the price. The most brutal price. When Crystal entered, she saw Ethan sitting alone on the sofa, his face dark and grim. The atmosphere in the living room was heavy. An inexplicable thump sounded in her heart, but she quickly forced a smile, trying to make her tone sound gentle. "Ethan, I've thought about it and you're right. What we had is in the past. But as a friend, I want to help you find Seraphina as soon as possible. Right now, you don't know where she is. Why don't you take me with you? I can take care of you." And since we look alike, having me as a reference will be more effective when you're asking about her. Crystal found it almost difficult to say that last sentence. But for now, staying by Ethan's side was the most important thing. Finding one person in a vast sea of people was a daunting task. When Ethan was desperate and vulnerable, that would be her best opportunity. If, by some slim chance, they did find Serafina, being by Ethan's side would give her the chance to drive Serafina away. In any case, Crystal knew she had to go with him this time. She had already humbled herself so much, acting so gentle and understanding. Ethan should be moved. But to her surprise, Ethan just stared at her blankly, his gaze so cold it was chilling. I have photos of Serafina. I have no need to take you. Crystal's smile froze. She hadn't expected Ethan to refuse, but she persisted. Photos can be deceiving. A real person is more direct. Ethan scoffed. A photo of Serafina herself is far more real than an imposter like you. Imposter. Crystal felt a profound sense of humiliation. She dug her nails into her palm, forcing herself not to get angry. Staying by his side was more important than anything else. She forced a smile. But Ethan suddenly cut her off, his gaze sharp and questioning. What really happened on the hillside that day? Was it really Serafina who called you there? Crystal's heart leaped violently. Of course it was. I never thought Serafina would do something like that, but don't blame her. She was just too possessive of you, that's why she treated me that way, and she's already been punished for it. It's all in the past. I'm not holding a grudge. Is that so? Ethan stared at her coldly. Crystal feigned composure. Of course. Mr. Ainsworth, it's been confirmed. The contents of the letter are true. I found the witness, and it was indeed. The assistant strode in. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Crystal was also there, but seeing that Ethan didn't stop him from reporting, he continued. It was indeed Miss Jennings who pushed Madam down. Also, I've brought the manager's assistant. The manager's assistant, wiping sweat from his brow, stammered out an explanation. That day, it was Miss Jennings who asked me to give a message to Serafina, saying the manager wanted to see her on the small hill. Ethan let out a cold laugh. Good, very good, he walked toward Crystal, step by step. So, it was you who called Serafina to the hillside. And it was you who pushed her down and then played the victim. Do you have any idea that you caused her to have a miscarriage, that you cost me my own child? Chapter 17. Ethan's eyes looked as if he wanted to flay Crystal alive. With the ironclad evidence before her, Crystal knew she couldn't bluff her way out. She spoke with a trembling voice. Ethan, I only did it because I love you so much. I'll have a baby for you, okay? Don't you like Dottie? I'll give you another one. Ah, with a savage kick from Ethan, Crystal clutched her chest and flew backward, crashing into a vase by the coffee table. The vase shattered into pieces, the sharp shards embedding themselves in her back. Crystal couldn't help but let out a wretched and horrific scream. But Ethan grabbed her by the hair, one hand clamping down on her neck. What right do you have to cry in pain? You caused Serafina so much misery. Dying 10 times over wouldn't be enough. Ethan's grip tightened, and Crystal's face immediately turned red as she struggled for breath. No, Mr. Ainsworth. He's going to kill her if this keeps up. The assistant and the manager's assistant pulled at Ethan from either side. But in his rage, he was like a rampaging bull, impossible to restrain. Crystal's eyes were already starting to roll back. If someone dies, you'll never have the chance to go find Madam, the assistant shouted in a moment of quick thinking. Crystal felt the pressure on her neck suddenly release. She clutched her throat, gasping for air. Ethan looked at her with disgust. Crystal, it turns out I never really knew you. From the moment you eloped with someone else, I should have known how fickle you are. You came back with another man's child, I should have known how shameless you are, and you dared to frame my Serafina to kill my child. You truly have the venomous heart of a snake. That time in the dance studio, when you fell and scratched your arm, that must have been your own doing too, right? All those times you claimed Serafina was unkind to you, it was all you, wasn't it? Since you love self-harm so much, I'll indulge you, a sense of foreboding filled Crystal. No, Ethan, no. But Ethan didn't even glance at her again, only coldly instructing his assistant. Take her away, hand her over to the police, and make a call. Give her some special treatment. He emphasized the word special, and hearing it, a chill ran down Crystal's spine. She struggled, she begged, but it was all in vain. The sound of Crystal's struggles faded into the distance. Ethan's cold gaze then fell on the manager's assistant. Mr. Ainsworth, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't know Miss Jennings would do that. You didn't know? The question hissed from between Ethan's teeth. They were both in the troop, right under your nose. You're telling me you didn't know about Crystal's malicious intentions. You were derelict in your duty. Go accept your punishment. The manager's assistant's face turned ashen, but he still felt a bit of resentment. What if I did know? When you let Miss Jennings take Seraphina's lead role, I complained about the injustice privately. You heard about it and reprimanded me. You were the one who was biased toward Crystal. You're the boss here, so over time, we all got used to siding with Crystal. I was wrong, and I'll go accept my punishment now. But am I the only one who was wrong? After saying this, he didn't expect Ethan to admit fault and quietly left. Ethan, however, collapsed onto the sofa, a sudden, unbearable pain piercing his heart. Yes, the person who had favored Crystal, who had given her the confidence to bully Seraphina time and time again, that person was him. He was the real culprit, the instigator. Ethan saw to it that Crystal was sent to prison. He heard that she often got into fights inside, and her body was covered in scratches. One time, during yard time, she rolled down a small slope, hit her head on the pavement, and bled profusely. During a group fight, she was accidentally stomped on in the abdomen and had to have her uterus removed. Confirming that Crystal had received her special treatment, Ethan let out a long sigh of relief. Seraphina, you see, I've gotten revenge for you. Those who hurt you will not have a good end. I will protect you from now on. Seraphina, where are you? Ethan suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed. He was sick. At first, the doctors thought it was just exhaustion and anxiety, something that could be fixed with rest. But he showed no signs of improvement. The doctor shook his head. Mr. Ainsworth's illness is of the heart. If the heart isn't cured, no medicine can help. His family was frantic. Arthur Ainsworth SR had only one son, and his initial anger at his son's lack of ambition softened. He decided to use his connections to find Seraphina. Only if she returned would his son have a chance to be saved. With Arthur Ainsworth SR's powerful background, an investigation quickly yielded results. Chapter 18. America. As Seraphina stepped off the plane, she immediately spotted a group of people standing on their tiptoes, eagerly looking for her. It wasn't just because they were impeccably dressed, with refined appearances and temperaments that made them stand out in the crowd, but also because several of them bore a striking resemblance to her. Sira, her family spotted her at the same time and rushed forward excitedly to surround her. Sira, I'm your mother. You've suffered so much all these years. You've been so wronged. I'm your father. Sira, it's good that you're back. From now on, whatever you want, just tell your father. Seraphina's nose tingled. She remembered the years with Ethan. She had thought he would be her family too, but Ethan's words were always about I, hurting her again and again. Her parents, on the other hand, spoke only of you. So this is what it felt like to be truly loved and cared for. Seraphina's heart had never felt so warm and comforted. A handsome young man with refined features naturally took the suitcase from Seraphina's hand and asked with anticipation, Sira, do you remember me? Seraphina looked at him, a sense of familiarity washing over her, but she couldn't recall anything specific. She shook her head apologetically. I'm sorry, I've lost some of my memories. I don't remember anything from my childhood. You rascal, why do you have to bring up a sore subject right away? Let Sira rest a bit, a kind-looking woman said, playfully swatting the young man before turning to Seraphina with a beaming smile. Sira, I'm your Auntie Croft, and this is my boy, Julian Croft. It's okay if you don't remember. Don't rush it, we have plenty of time. Like stars around the moon, they escorted Seraphina home. It was a large villa with a beautiful garden, a swimming pool, and a lawn out back. Julian pointed to an equally magnificent villa next door. Sira, I live right here. Just like when we were kids in Westwood City, we're still neighbors. Seraphina's father added, this area is quieter. We thought it would be good for your recovery. If you prefer a livelier place, we can move downtown. Whatever you like. Julian quickly chimed in, Sira, our houses downtown are also next door to each other. Mrs. Croft couldn't help but laugh and explain. Sira, you don't know, our two families have been neighbors since you were little. My boy is 3 years older than you, and when you were born, he was absolutely smitten. He'd act like a little adult, always wanting to hold you, and he even tried to learn how to feed you and change your diapers. Serafina's mother continued with a smile. Seeing how much Julian liked you, I teased him and said, "Why don't you ask your mom to have a baby too?" The next morning, Julian showed up with dark circles under his eyes and said he had thought about it all night and only wanted you. He even seriously asked me, "Auntie, can't you just give me this one?" At this, Julian looked a bit embarrassed. I remember I was full of hope, but then Auntie Holloway told me, "No way, I only have this one. If I give her to you, I won't have any left." I was heartbroken. Mrs. Croft added, "I can vouch for that. For a few days, this boy wouldn't even eat his favorite braised pork knuckles. He was just moping around all day." Serafina's mother said, "Later, Julian pestered me so much that I finally gave in and agreed to a childhood engagement between you two. Only then did he become cheerful again and get his appetite back." At the mention of this, Mrs. Croft's tone became very enthusiastic. "Sira, although we believe in finding love freely now, Julian played a huge part in finding you. He's worked hard, even if he hasn't achieved a great merit. So, you might want to consider him. Of course, just consider him, see how he does. No pressure." Serafina had been wondering how she was found after so many years. Now, listening to her family's stories, she finally had the answer. Chapter 19. After Serafina went missing, both the Holloway and Croft families had searched for her frantically. Unfortunately, information networks were not well developed back then, and the traffickers were cunning, leaving no trace of her whereabouts. After joining the dance troupe, Serafina spent almost all her time practicing, effectively cut off from the world and even harder to find. Fortunately, as her dancing improved, she once appeared in a newspaper published by the headquarters of Ethan's Corporation. It was a brief news item with a tiny photo of her dancing. Both the Holloway and Croft families had a habit of browsing news from various countries, especially from China. Julian Croft spotted her in the online newspaper immediately. "It's Sira, it must be Sira." The two families investigated and confirmed it was her. They immediately sent her an email. Listening to the story, Serafina was deeply moved. So, she had been loved by so many people. No, not in the past tense. She was back now, back with her family. From now on, she would be loved by many, many people. Serafina made up her mind to love her family dearly in return, and she hoped she could regain her memories soon. Those were precious memories with her family. Serafina was led to her bedroom. It was very large, very clean, and decorated in a princess style. Her family told her it was cleaned every day, always waiting for its little mistress to return. Surrounded by so much love, Serafina, despite being in a foreign land, had a wonderful night's sleep. The next day, the Holloways held a grand welcome banquet for her. From her family's letters, Serafina had guessed that the Holloways were well off. Now she learned that they were once a renowned high society family in Westwood City. In America, they were undoubtedly part of the upper class. The banquet was filled with distinguished guests, a glittering affair, and Serafina was the center of attention. She was led into the ballroom, holding her parents' hands on either side. "We are overjoyed to announce that our family's lost treasure has returned." In the days that followed, Julian was almost inseparable from Serafina. At first, she felt a little awkward. Julian said wistfully, "Sira, am I bothering you? We were inseparable like this when we were kids. If you don't like it, I can step back a bit." With that, he reluctantly took a small step to the side, a distance of about a fist's width. Serafina couldn't help but smile. She was not an ungrateful person. She could feel Julian's kindness, and there was an inexplicable sense of familiarity about him. She wasn't bothered at all. In fact, she enjoyed his company. "You're not bothering me as long as you're not bored." Julian, who had been looking as dejected as a puppy, instantly brightened up. "Sira, you said it, I'm holding you to that." Julian began to proudly take Serafina sightseeing. They visited the Grand Canyon, hailed as nature's magical fissure, and the world's largest volcanic crater. They saw the Statue of Liberty, waterfalls, and countless breathtaking sunsets. Serafina had never told Julian that she wanted to travel and see the world, but with a deep understanding, he seemed to know her thoughts. Later, they went on vacation to a beach in Hawaii. In Hawaii's year-round summer, they shed their winter clothes for lighter attire. The moment Julian stepped out, Serafina was momentarily stunned. Julian, who always looked so tall, slender, and gentle, was now all muscle, his white tank top stretched taut over his physique. He was surprisingly sexy. The gentle puppy had become a big, strong wolf. Serafina almost turned her head away in embarrassment. Julian saw her flushed face, and a happy curve formed on his lips. At first, they just sunbathed, built sandcastles, and watched the sea. Later, Serafina was captivated by the surfers on the water. Seeing this, Julian immediately asked, "Wanna try? I'll teach you." Serafina had become comfortable with him and nodded generously. They quickly changed into swimsuits and got on their surfboards. Julian demonstrated first, gliding effortlessly through the waves. The sun fell on him, making him seem to glow. "Sierra, your turn." Because he was teaching her to surf, their hands were joined. Initially, Serafina kept slipping off the board and falling into the sea. Each time, Julian would gently and patiently swim to her, lift her up, and help her back onto the board. Perhaps due to her years of dance training, or maybe some natural talent, Serafina quickly learned to surf. They rode the waves hand in hand, and Serafina's movements became more and more fluid. With her long dance training, her posture was incredibly graceful, and Julian found himself lost in watching her. In a moment of distraction, he fell into the sea. When he resurfaced, a piece of seaweed was stuck to his head. Serafina took one look at him and burst out laughing. Julian climbed back onto the board, confused. Serafina reached out and removed the seaweed for him. Unconsciously, they had drawn very close. Their eyes met, and Julian took her hand. "Sierra, will you be my girlfriend?" Chapter 20. Droplets of water trickled down from Julian's hair. His eyes were wet, but his gaze was incredibly serious. Serafina was stunned for a moment. She had been hurt so deeply by Ethan and had thought she would never love again. But the racing of her heart couldn't lie. "But I've had a very failed marriage. I know." Julian took her hand and gently placed it on his own heart. "Sierra, it's my fault. I lost you and let you suffer so much, let you be hurt by others. But that won't happen again. And don't feel pressured. It's my business that I like you and can't help telling you, but whether you accept is your choice. If you're not ready, that's okay. I can wait. Just be yourself." In that moment, Serafina was completely moved. A wrong love can make you sink, getting worse and worse. But right now, she knew that loving and being loved made her free and happy. So, love was both surrender and freedom. She was willing to be herself, to follow her heart and make a decision. "Okay." Serafina agreed with a smile. Seeing them return hand in hand, the Holloway and Croft families were overjoyed. The topic of their childhood engagement was quickly brought up again. The two families discussed it and decided to hold a grand engagement party for them. As it happened, many of their relatives and friends were still in Westwood City, back in their home country. The two families decided to hold the engagement party there. They also had a secret hope that returning to the environment of her childhood might help Serafina remember her past. Although they didn't mind her amnesia at all, they felt a pang of sadness for her and wished for her to have her complete memories and life. Ethan had been in a slump for a long time, spending his days silently looking through photos of Serafina, his gaze alternating between affection, guilt, and pain. He would sit like that for a whole day. He finally knew he had been completely and utterly wrong. He had hurt Serafina too deeply. But he also knew that finding her in the vast sea of people was a slim chance. The unspoken love and apologies were torturing him, driving him mad. "Look at you, so pathetic." Hearing his father's voice, Ethan's back stiffened slightly, but he remained silent. His father continued, "We've found Serafina." Ethan's head snapped up. "Where is Serafina? Where is she?" Seeing his urgency, Arthur Ainsworth SR sighed. It seemed his son's love for Serafina ran deep, but alas, it seemed to be too late. "Do you remember the Holloway family from Westwood City? Serafina is their long-lost daughter. After she resigned, she went to America to reunite with them, and now the whole family is returning to Westwood City." Seeing the light flare in Ethan's eyes, his father couldn't bear to say the word engagement. But Ethan was already gone, shooting out like an arrow from a bow. Watching his desperate figure, his father shook his head. Well, they had 5 years of history between them. Let's see if he could win back the love of his life. "Get the car, we're going to Westwood City," Ethan excitedly ordered his assistant. The Holloway family of Westwood City, he knew of them. They were a prominent and noble family. Although the Ainsworth family had some background, they were still a step below the Holloways. Years ago, when his father heard the Holloways had a daughter, he had taken Ethan to visit. He had secretly hoped for a marriage alliance. Unfortunately, the Holloways had been politely distant, not taking the hint at all. And there was a little boy who protectively held the Holloway baby, glaring at them as if they were thieves. Seeing this, his father had been too embarrassed to mention the idea of a marriage alliance again. Thinking of this, Ethan's nose tingled. So he and Serafina had met so long ago, it must be fate. Now that Serafina was back, he would absolutely not let her go again. Ethan got in the car. Just as they were about to leave, Evelyn opened the door and slipped in. "Brother, I'm going to Westwood City too. Let's go together." Evelyn seemed strange, both excited and shy, yet also preoccupied. "What's wrong with you?" Ethan immediately noticed something was off. "Nothing, it's just been a while since I've been to Westwood City. I'm a little excited." Ethan had his own worries, so he didn't think much of it. All Evelyn wanted was to get to Westwood City as quickly as possible. She had heard from her father that Serafina was the Holloway heiress and was returning to Westwood City for her engagement. She didn't care about Serafina, but her fiancé was Julian Croft. Both the Croft and Holloway families were powerful clans in the city. When she was young, Evelyn had heard her father talk about them. It wasn't until she was in her teens that she had the chance to visit the Crofts' home. After meeting Julian, it was a case of love at first sight. Unfortunately, her love was unrequited. Later, the Croft and Holloway families moved to America, and Evelyn's secret crush came to a dead end. She had longed for his return, and now that he was finally back, he was getting engaged to Serafina. The thought filled Evelyn with resentment. How dare this lowly woman first steal her brother and then the man she loved most? Evelyn dug her nails into her palm, her eyes filled with hatred. Serafina should just disappear from this world. Evelyn watched the scenery fly by outside the window, her eyes dark as she plotted. Her plan to kill with a borrowed knife would surely succeed. Chapter 21. When the car stopped, Ethan was surprised to find the road in front of the Holloway villa choked with traffic, making it impossible to drive through. He had to get out with Evelyn, but as soon as they reached the gate, they were stopped by a guard. "Sir, miss, please show your invitation." "What invitation?" Ethan was bewildered. "I'm here to find Serafina Holloway. I must see her right now." But the guard shook his head. "Sorry, no entry without an invitation." Ethan was confused, and that familiar sense of panic returned. He grabbed a guest who was trying to enter and snatched the invitation from their hand. Instantly, Ethan felt as if he had been punched in the gut and stumbled back a few steps. It was an engagement invitation. His Serafina was getting engaged to someone else. Rage consumed him, and he tried to force his way in, heedless of the consequences. "I won't allow it. I am Serafina's husband. I haven't agreed to a divorce. She can't marry someone else. Let me see her. I want to see Serafina." The commotion was so loud that Serafina, who was about to change into her formal dress, heard it too. "Sera, don't worry. We'll drag that madman away. We won't let him ruin this wonderful day," her family said. Both the Croft and Holloway families had heard about Ethan's actions and were furious. If it weren't for the happy occasion of the engagement, they would have beaten the man who had walked right into their trap. Serafina thought for a moment and said, "It's okay, I'll go see him." She had left in a hurry. It was better to make some things clear officially. "Sera, I'll go with you. Wait for me." Julian, who was already in his suit, came back having changed into casual clothes. Seeing Serafina's puzzled look, he smiled. "This makes it easier to throw a punch." Serafina smiled helplessly and let him take her hand as they walked downstairs. Seeing Serafina and Julian approaching like a perfect couple, the Ainsworth siblings were consumed by a frantic jealousy. Evelyn, suppressing a surge of bitterness, said, "Let's find a quieter place to talk. There are guests coming and going here. It doesn't look good." She was very familiar with the layout of the place. After Julian had left years ago, she would still occasionally wander around the neighborhood. She held onto a sliver of hope that he might suddenly return, leading to a romantic reunion. But that had never happened. The Croft and Holloway villas were next to each other, so Evelyn was familiar with the area around the Holloways' property as well. The four of them went to the back garden. Evelyn glanced at the not-so-high iron fence behind her, hiding the malice in her eyes. "Julian, they have things to talk about. Why don't we wait over there?" It's been a long time since we've seen each other. How have you been all these years? I've always. Evelyn's heart pounded, and she could barely control the adoration in her gaze. But Julian seemed not to notice, politely and distantly refusing her. No, thank you. I need to stay with Sierra. Ethan exploded with anger. Serafina and I have things to say to each other. What are you meddling for? Get lost, you outsider. He recognized him. Years ago, when he and his father went to see the newborn Serafina, it was this Croft kid who had guarded her like they were thieves now. With old and new grudges combined, Ethan wanted nothing more than to beat him up. But he knew that using force would only push Serafina further away. He and Serafina had a strong connection. He was confident he could win her back, but the Serafina who supposedly had a strong connection with him was cold and distant. Ethan Ainsworth, Julian is not an outsider. If you have something to say it now. We're very busy today and don't have much time for you. The clear distinction in how she addressed them wounded Ethan deeply. Seeing Serafina's firm attitude, he couldn't care less about his rival or his sister being present and immediately confessed his feelings. Serafina, the truth is, I fell in love with you a long time ago deeply in love. I was just too slow, too dense. It wasn't until you left that I realized it. Do you know, I looked for you everywhere. I went to Riverton, to Westwood City, to so many places all over the country, but I couldn't find you. In those moments, I realized I truly can't live without you. And I know now that it was Crystal who slandered you time and again. I mistakenly believed her, and that's why I accidentally hurt you, but she has received the punishment she deserves. From now on, I will make it up to you. Come back with me. I will love you for the rest of my life. Can you give me another chance? He finished, looking at Serafina with deep emotion. Serafina listened quietly, her only thought being, of course. Chapter 22, of course. A selfish person's every sentence begins with I fell in love with her. I went looking for her. I can't live without her, or I was deceived by Crystal, and that's why I made a mistake. None of this interested Serafina in the slightest, because she no longer loved. Serafina shook her head. No, why? I truly know I was wrong. I really do love you. It's too late, Ethan. When sadness accumulates, drop by drop, until it becomes a flood that can't be contained, a relationship can no longer be repaired. From the very beginning, you treated me as a substitute, without any real respect. During our marriage, you stayed out night after night. You knew my weaknesses, and you used them to hurt me deeply. Thinking of the past, of having the things she cared about taken away, of being slandered, of being punished. Thinking of her claustrophobia, of the despair of being locked in darkness. Thinking of the child who never had a chance to be born. Serafina felt a wound in her heart tear open. It was painful, and she felt deeply wronged. She sniffled and said, word by word, Ethan Ainsworth, I can never forgive you. The words were spoken softly, but they hit Ethan like a bullet to the head. He explained in agony, no, it's not what you think. Nothing ever happened between me and Crystal. I can swear it. I'll make up for everything I did wrong, just don't leave me. In his agitation, Ethan lunged forward, trying to pull Serafina into his arms. But he grabbed at empty air. Julian had moved Serafina behind him. My fiancé said you two are over. Please have some self-respect. Ethan pointed at him, incandescent with rage, having lost all reason. You're the one who swooped in when she was vulnerable. I haven't even dealt with you yet. Do you dare to compete with me? Whoever wins gets Serafina, winner takes all. Do you dare? Julian frowned at him. Ethan thought he was scared and pressed on. What, are you scared? You're just a coward. You don't deserve Serafina. Julian shook his head. I'm just surprised that you haven't learned even basic respect. Sierra is a person, an independent individual with the right to choose for herself. She is not a prize to be won. Ethan was stunned. Julian's words were like a bucket of cold water poured over his head, making him vaguely realize that he had truly lost. And Julian was already rolling up his sleeves. I refuse to compete with you, but I can teach you a lesson. Ethan, instead of getting angry, laughed. A pretty boy like you, asking for a beating? Don't blame me for being rough as a family heir. He had received elite training from a young age and was skilled in combat. However, after only a few moves, Julian executed a beautiful shoulder throw, slamming Ethan hard onto the ground. Unwilling to believe it, Ethan went at him again, but was still at a disadvantage, ultimately ending up being beaten down by Julian. See, Sierra, I'm pretty strong, right? Do you like me a little more now? Julian even had the leisure to tease Serafina. Meanwhile, Ethan, whose body felt like it was falling apart, saw his once unshakable confidence crumble. In that moment, he suddenly realized that when it came to loving Serafina, he was no match for Julian. He wasn't even as capable as he had thought. His father had once said that his smooth sailing career was due to his family background. He had scoffed at it then, but now he finally believed it. Just as Serafina was about to leave with Julian, she saw a flash of cold light. "Serafina, I'll kill you." It was a familiar voice and a face that was horribly disfigured. Chapter 23. But before the knife could land on Serafina, her view was blocked. It was Ethan. He had taken the blade for her. Julian, in a swift and clean motion, subdued the attacker. The person was painfully thin, covered in scars, with a horrifying gash running across their face. But Serafina could still vaguely recognize her as Crystal. "Why? Why did you take it for her?" "Ethan, she doesn't love you anymore. I'm the only one who loves you if she disappears. We can be together, let's be together." Ha ha ha, Crystal was laughing and crying, clearly having lost her sanity. Guards quickly arrived. Julian handed Crystal over to them and then pointed coldly at Evelyn. "And her, take them both to the police." A moment ago, Evelyn had been looking back frequently, agitated. The moment Crystal appeared, a twisted, triumphant smile had spread across her face. Julian knew she was definitely involved. "Why are you taking me? This has nothing to do with me." Evelyn suppressed her panic, trying to look pitiful. Julian just said coldly, "You can tell it to the police." "Julian, why are you doing this to me? I've always loved you. Look at me, I'm beautiful too, and I love you so much, Julian protectively held Serafina and glanced at Evelyn. Ugly heart, even uglier face. That one sentence shattered Evelyn's defenses. She had always had a high opinion of herself. She never imagined the man she had secretly loved for so long would describe her this way. Evelyn was humiliated and despairing, all life seeming to drain from her. Julian squeezed Serafina's hand and whispered in her ear, "I should explain. I'm not the kind of person who makes rude comments about a woman's appearance. But she was cruel to you in the past, so I had to return the favor." Serafina smiled. So Julian had this mischievous, cunning side too, and she thought she quite liked it. Just as she was about to reply, she heard Ethan's pained voice. "Serafina, you see, I would die for you. I really do love you. Please give me one more chance." Ethan clutched his chest. The pain was immense, but his heart was filled with joy. He had proven his love. Would Serafina come back to him now? But Serafina's eyes remained devoid of any emotion. "Thank you, let's call it even. From now on, there is no love or hate between us. We are strangers." With that, she and Julian walked away, hand in hand. Ethan's vision went black, and he collapsed into unconsciousness. The small interruption did not affect the grand engagement party. Julian changed into a custom suit, and Serafina put on a stunningly beautiful gown. As he placed the ring on Serafina's finger, Julian's eyes welled up. "Sira, do you know, from the day you left, it felt like it had been snowing in my heart for 10,000 years. But I'm so glad you're back. May your life from now on be filled with sunshine and gentle breezes. May you be free, may you be happy, and may I always be by your side." The heartfelt confession drew thunderous applause from the audience, and some were even moved to tears. In the moment they kissed, a flood of memories returned to Serafina. All the memories from before she was lost came rushing back. Serafina smiled. She knew that from this moment on, her life was truly complete. Ethan remained unconscious for more than 10 days before waking up. He learned that Evelyn had helped Crystal escape from prison, hoping she would get rid of Serafina. Instead, the plan backfired, harming her own brother and earning the complete disgust of the man she loved, Julian. Evelyn and Crystal received their due punishment and both ended up in prison. Seeing Ethan awake, his father sighed in relief. "All right, Ethan, you've tried. You have to know when to let go. The Holloway family has already returned to America. With your status, you can't leave the country. It's impossible between you two. That position at headquarters has been held for you until now. I've been holding back the board's pressure. For now, focus on your work. With a career, you won't have to worry about finding love." "No," Ethan said with extreme bitterness. "There is no other Serafina in the world. Without her, what's the point of winning the world? Dad, I want to resign from all my positions." I'm going to America to find her. I hope you won't stop me." "Are you insane?" His father struck his cane on the floor in disbelief. "Ethan, you manage a company involved in classified work. Even if you resign now, it will be 3 years before the restrictions are lifted and you can go abroad." Chapter 24. Ethan said without hesitation, "Then I'll wait 3 years. And what after 3 years? She's already engaged. In 3 years, she might have a child who's already running around." At the mention of child, Ethan trembled with pain. If not for the accidents, if he had understood his love sooner, if he had believed in and protected Serafina steadfastly, then their child would be about to be born. Would it have been a boy or a girl? Who would it have looked like? Unfortunately, Ethan would never, ever know the answer. "In any case, I must find Serafina. Even if she doesn't forgive me, I will stay by her side." Ethan pulled the IV needle from his hand and stubbornly walked out. 3 years later, the moment he set foot in America, Ethan's heart surged with emotion. He could finally be with Serafina again for over 1,000 days and nights. He had 1,000 words he wanted to say to her. He had also come to terms with it. If Serafina forgave him, that would be wonderful. If she still wouldn't accept him, he would quietly watch over her from a distance. That would be enough for a lifetime. However, when he rushed to the Holloway villa, he heard from the gardener that the family had returned to their home country the day before. They said the moon is brightest in one's hometown. They wanted to go back to be with their relatives and contribute to their motherland. Ethan stood there, stunned. Was he too late again? Why did they always miss each other like this? When her heart and eyes were full of him, he hadn't cherished her. But by the time he understood his own heart and looked back, she had already disappeared into the crowd. This time, he had given up everything to cross the ocean for her. And she, once again, had moved far away from him. Ethan sat outside the Holloway villa for a whole afternoon before buying a ticket back home. On the plane, a flight attendant handed him a newspaper. In the society section, he saw Serafina. The news said that the Holloway Group and the Croft Group had officially merged through marriage. In the future, the couple would focus on their home country, working hard to contribute their light and warmth. The words blurred, but the photo of Serafina's smiling face was so clear, so bright, so heart-wrenching. What a pity that the person by her side was no longer him. Back in his home country, Ethan happened to catch the broadcast of Serafina and Julian's wedding on the news. Later, the couple worked hand in hand, starting businesses, creating jobs, and paying taxes, becoming widely praised patriotic entrepreneurs. Even later, their children were born. A pair of fraternal twins, a boy and a girl. Ethan went to great lengths just to catch a glimpse of them. So cute, cuter than he had ever imagined. As he quietly left, Ethan suddenly squatted down, an unbearable pain in his heart. He finally understood that a broken heart truly does make a sound. "I'm sorry, Serafina, I've broken my promise again. I can't watch you be happy. Because for me, it's a slow, torturous death by 1,000 cuts. Forgive me for leaving without a word. I'm gone, and I will never come back to bother you." Ethan wrote the letter but never sent it to Serafina. He just tore it into pieces and let them scatter in the wind. He had said he wouldn't bother Serafina again. For once in his life, he had to keep his word. Ethan began a life of wandering, without a fixed home, enduring immense hardship, but feeling he deserved it all. But in every temple he came across, he would prostrate himself devoutly, bowing every few steps, his knees raw and bloody, without hesitation. He did this for one single, wholehearted prayer. Ethan couldn't bear to watch Serafina's happiness up close, so he ran far away. And for the rest of his life, from a distance, he wished her a lifetime of happiness and peace.